You and your friends are coming to the latest information, the most notable current events on the YouTube channel of Nghe An Newspaper, the digital infrastructure of Nghe An Newspaper and radio and television. To know what the program is about today, please follow along below. On September 25, the Russian ambassador to France, Alex Meskov, warned that any NATO member state shooting down a Russian plane accused of violating the alliance's airspace would mean a conflict. When asked how Russia would react if one of its planes was shot down by NATO, Ambassador Meskov said that it would mean a conflict. Specifically, he said it would be a conflict. Many NATO military aircraft violate our airspace, both accidentally and not accidentally, but no one shoots them down. Meskov also said that Europe has not provided any concrete evidence to prove Russia's involvement in violations of European airspace. The Russian diplomat said that first of all, we do not play games with anyone. Second, after the West has fooled us so many times, we only believe in authentic facts. Last week, Estonia requested urgent consultations under NATO's Article 4, claiming that Russian military aircraft had violated its airspace. Poland also accused Russia of sending decoy UAVs into its territory. NATO Secretary General Marat said he did not rule out shooting down Russian aircraft if they violated alliance airspace. However, he stressed that such decisions were made on a case-by-case basis. Defense Minister Lvodovan Sokolin also called on NATO to be firm in the face of what he said was Russia's attempt to test the bloc's resolve. Speaking to reporters on May 24 after talks with his Russian counterpart Sak Lavrov on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York, Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjarto affirmed that Budapest will prioritize its national interests in the fields of energy and foreign policy. Mr. Szijjarto said that he and Foreign Minister Lavrov have been working together for more than 11 years and that it is a regular occurrence to meet at major international events. I emphasized that Hungary wants peace to come as soon as possible because we have been living next to the Russian-Ukrainian war for the past 3.5 years. We have been facing the consequences of this war for too long, Mr. Szijjarto said. The Hungarian foreign minister accused the European Commission of not protecting the interests of member states after recent Ukrainian attacks on the Trutba oil pipeline, which supplies Hungary and Slovakia. Instead of protecting our energy security, they are lecturing us, he said. And you know, I think this is a scandal. When Ukraine attacked the Ruba pipeline, it knew full well that this would threaten Hungary's energy security. Attacking Ruba would hurt Russia much less than it would Hungary or Slovakia. Mr. Szijjarto argues that EU institutions have long sought to replace the Hungarian government.
He stressed that this exercise demonstrates the combat capabilities and proficiency in operating strategic weapons of the Russian Navy. Aganjan is a Genmer M-class nuclear attack submarine built at the Zmaz plant in 2015, launched in November 2023 and officially put into operation in December 2024. This is considered one of Russia's most modern submarines equipped with a diverse weapon system including ONIC and Kalib-PL administrative missiles, allowing it to carry out strategic attack and deterrence missions at sea. According to military experts, Russia's organization of missile launch exercises from nuclear submarines not only helps improve combat coordination but also demonstrates the ability to quickly deploy strategic weapons. The ONIC missile used in the exercise has a range of hundreds of kilometers and is considered an effective weapon in attacking large warship targets. The introduction of the From urging Ukraine to make territorial concessions in order to reach a peace deal, U.S. President Donald Trump has now said that the KF could reclaim all of its territory if it had the backing of Europe and NATO. This development raises the question of whether Mr. Trump has truly turned into a strong supporter of Ukraine, and it quickly became a hot topic of discussion on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York on March 23. The White House boss's post on Chia, published shortly after his meeting with his Ukrainian counterpart Vladimir Zelensky, was notable for two reasons. First, it contradicts Mr. Trump's previous statements that Ukraine could not hope to defeat a larger opponent. Second, it contradicts his administration's view of ending the conflict, that is, through negotiations in which the KF would have to make territorial concessions to Russia. Another question is, what led to this sudden change? Accordingly, the first reason is said to be due to military and economic realities. The West believes that Russia is paying the price for the conflict both in terms of human resources and finances. Mr. Trump himself admitted that Moscow is in great economic trouble and said that this strengthens the possibility that Ukraine can win if supported by the West. On Church Sower, Mr. Trump wrote that after better understanding the economic and military situation of Ukraine and Russia, he believes that Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is fully capable of fighting and regaining all of its original territory. He also commented that the conflict is making Russia look like a paper tiger, with Moscow financially exhausted and having difficulty securing fuel sources. The second reason, observers believe that President Trump is being influenced by allies. Last month, many European leaders came to Washington to urge the U.S. to be more cautious in its relations with President Putin. NATO countries in Europe have also increased aid to Kyiv, undermining Mr. Trump's long-standing argument that the United States bears most of the cost. Notably, Mr. Trump has unexpectedly joined Europe in supporting the shooting down of a plane accused of being Russian in violation of NATO airspace. In a meeting with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly, when asked about the possibility of NATO shooting down a Russian plane, Mr. Trump replied tersely, "Yes, I agree." The third reason for this sudden change seems to be internal political motivation. Some observers believe that President Trump is under pressure from both parties in the U.S. because he has been accused of being too soft on Russia. A tougher defense and security stance could help him consolidate support within the Republican Party, while attracting support from moderates who see defending Ukraine as a test of national prestige. In addition, it is necessary to take into account the negotiating tactics of Mr. Trump. The U.S. leader is known to change his position to gain an advantage. The mention of compromise may just be a way to pressure Moscow and Kyiv to sit at the negotiating table. When Russia showed no intention of giving in, his stance changed to restore Ukraine's territorial integrity. European Union officials are trying to explain the sudden change of stance of U.S. President Donald Trump in a mood mixed with excitement and skepticism. They point out that Mr. Trump, who often changes his position, could completely change his mind after a convincing phone call from another leader. This reality makes it more difficult for European leaders to shape their response to the conflict in Ukraine. However, the immediate reaction from the EU delegation is still cautious confidence in Mr. Trump's new strong tone. An EU official in New York commented on the new message from the US president regarding the conflict in Ukraine. "This is the toughest statement yet. This is a process fraught with significant industrial and technological challenges." The statement discussing the possibility of joint production of the KP system in the Ukrainian armed forces with KNDS CEO Rosen shows that Ukraine is seriously interested. However, the recreation of the GP faces several obstacles. Firstly, the production capacity and the relevant technology no longer exist. Therefore, engineers cannot rely only on old drawings but will have to redesign the system from scratch. In particular, all the electronics of the original system will have to be replaced with more modern ones. Secondly, the original KP chassis, the Leopard 1, is no longer in production. The third obstacle is that the Kepart radar has also been discontinued. The most feasible solution is to replace them with more modern radar equivalents, which have better performance and are easy to mass produce. So, if production were to resume, the end product would be a fundamentally new system that bears very little in common with the original KP in terms of technology and perhaps even appearance. The next question that arises is why Ukraine would choose to restore such a complex and time-consuming system instead of ordering the latest weapons such as the Skier Ranger system? Especially when mass production of the Skier Ranger has already been launched and the Rheinmetall Corporation, the manufacturer, even claims to be able to produce 200 systems per year. Moreover, a contract worth hundreds of millions of US dollars has been promised for these vehicles. The reason may lie in economics. A GP shell costs only about $300 US to take out a drone, which typically requires 20. Meanwhile, with a more modern system like Skyranger, the number of rounds needed to take down a target would be significantly less. A similar system like Skynex would only need about 10 rounds to destroy a target. However, the cost per round of Skyranger could be much higher than GP. The trade-off between cost per round and combat effectiveness presents a complex strategic choice. In a war where aerial targets such as drones are becoming more common, Having a system with low operating costs could be a major advantage that allows Ukraine to maintain a persistent defense capability without putting too much pressure on the defense budget. Ukraine's decision to revive the coup is not just a simple action but also an important strategic choice. Ukraine is faced with a choice: invest in a long and complex process to create a cost-effective air defense system that can be produced and maintained locally, or accept the higher cost of acquiring a superior modern system from a foreign manufacturer. In short, the agreement with KNDS reflects a new direction that shows Ukraine is willing to invest in domestic production capacity, leveraging proven weapons on the battlefield. This choice not only addresses immediate needs but also shapes Ukraine's future air defense capabilities, helping it avoid a complex air defense system arsenal and instead achieve a balance